This video is brought to you by Dr. Kristen R. Bromley's Guitar Method Book Series and Online Music Academy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Bromley. Welcome to my online academy. It's so great to have you joining me here in these online lessons. It's a Technique Tuesday, and I'm so excited to be bringing back Technique Tuesday. It's been a little while since we've had it, as we've been finishing up some series and starting some other series. A little overlap needed these Tuesdays to do some of that. So excited to have Technique Tuesday lessons back. Today, in this lesson, I'm going to be going over some tricks for bar chords. So this is actually going to be a three-part lesson. So this week and then the next 2 Tuesdays after this, we'll be looking at bar chords. So some things that can help us with bar chords. In this lesson, we're going to look at some shapes. One of the biggest tips for learning bar chords is to recognize that all you need to know is a few shapes, how to put a bar in front of those shapes. And then in the next lesson, we'll look at how we can move those all over the neck and play them in any key. And that's what's the magic, really, behind bar chords, is if we can get them down, and we need physically, so we'll talk a little bit about that physical part. But once we understand how to take a shape and move it all along the neck, we can suddenly play a chord in all 12 keys, or all the tonal centers that are available for that chord, and it just opens up our world. When I was learning guitar and when I was even playing in high school, it was always a competition. How many chords do you know? How many chords do you know? Well, as soon as you start to know bar chords, it piles up pretty fast how many chords you know. So it's awesome. All right, let's dive in with the most common shapes for bar chords, try and help you understand how this works. So the E chord in first position. This is one of the most common shapes to create bar chords from. So we got that E chord. If I move all of those fingers up one fret, rearrange my fingers here, and put a bar in front of it. So I'm using my index finger to play across all 6 strings, press those down against the fret. It creates what we call a bar, and it's spelled B-A-R-R-E. I know, kind of strange, but we're not going to the bar for a drink. It's a bar that we're pushing down here, which shortens the length of the neck. That's the whole idea. We have this nut down here, and the strings are touching the bridge. Depending on your guitar, it's going to look a little different, but the bridge and the nut, and then however much that string is tightened, and based on the size and so on, it rings at a certain pitch. And so we kind of have this interesting E minor-ish chord when we strum the guitar in standard tuning open, but then if I shorten the length, it changes the key, and so then it becomes, in this case, sort of F minor-ish E. And when I strum all the strings open like that, the bar works the same way as a capo, if you've used a capo. So if I take that E chord shape and I move it up and I put my index finger in front of it, I now have a bar chord shape based on the E chord. It looks the same as an E chord with my index finger in front of it. And then I can play that shape anywhere along the neck to play in different tonal centers. And we'll especially work on that part in the next lesson, the next Technique Tuesday. But we first just kind of want to get a little bit comfortable with these shapes. So I take my E chord. So I have that up here on the board. This is our major shape right here. So the E chord sitting right in front of that bar. And I've placed a square around this low note because that's the root note. That's the note the chord is named for. And whatever pitch that is ringing as is the version of the chord that we're playing. So here, down in first position, it's ringing as an F. So now I'm playing an F chord. If I go up and I have an 8th fret, I have a C, and I put that shape in front of it, that E chord shape, I get a C. If I go to the 5th fret, I have an A, and now I have an A chord. Or if I go A sharp or B flat, now I have an A sharp or B flat chord, and so on. Now, what's cool with the E chord is in first position, it's really easy to play the E major, the E minor, and the E7 chord. So all of these work this way. So we have the minor shape where you just put that E minor in front of the bar. We have the dominant 7th shape, like E7 for example, where we put that E7 shape in front of the bar. So here in first position when I was playing that F, there's F major, but I can make it F minor. And you'll notice when I do that, sometimes this finger comes over and helps get some strength. And then we have the F7, just changing it up based upon that shape, my E chord shapes. E minor, and E7. It's that simple. Isn't that awesome? So if we come up then to the 8th fret, and I put my bar down, this note is a C, so I'm going to be playing C major when I put that E major shape in front of it, C minor when I put that minor shape in front of it, and C7 when I put that dominant 7th shape in front of it. These are some of the most common shapes used for playing bar chords. These three right here, the E major, the E minor, and the E7. Alternatively, if we only use those ones, we'd be sliding all over the neck all the time. The other most common shape comes right out of the A chord. So in first position we have an A, we have an A minor, and we have an A7. We can similarly put those shapes in front of the bar to create bar chords with that root note off the 5th string. So you see the squares around those notes on the 5th string. So wherever that note is positioned along the neck is going to create the actual tonality of the chord type that I'm playing. So right here in first position, if I put that bar and I put down my A chord shape. Now with this one, it's a little tricky. There's a couple ways we can do it. We can stick to the inside 4 strings, and I use my ring finger to bar across these 3 notes, and then you can just mute the top string. Or you can finger with the middle ring and pinky fingers, and then get that top one to ring, and I do that sometimes. Some of my in-person students like to put down 2 fingers here to try and hold these ones, and that's okay as well. So that one is physically a little bit tricky as far as getting that going, but once you do, you're in good shape. So we have the major, and then the minor is actually pretty easy. Put that A minor shape in front of the bar, and now we have the minor version, and then we have the A7 shape in front of that bar, and now we have the dominant 7th version. So this is a B flat note here at the first fret of the 5th string. So I have a B flat chord, a B flat minor chord, or a B flat 7 chord. If I went up to the 8th fret, it's an F. So here I'd have an F major chord, an F minor chord, or an F7 chord. It's a D at the 5th fret. Here I'd have a D major, D minor, and D7. So that's the trick to it. Now there's other chords that we can take and put bars in front of and have another bar chord voicing, but these ones are the most common ones that we use. So these are the ones to learn first, and all I have to remember is I'm just putting the E chord shape in front of the bar, or the E minor or E7, or the A chord shape in front of the bar, or the A minor or the A7. Isn't that awesome? Now physically, it takes time to build up the strength. But it also doesn't take as much strength as we really maybe think it does. And we just have to learn to relax. So in the left arm, if it comes down, it needs to be a relaxed shoulder, nothing tightening up. The more our muscles tighten up, the more we actually kind of lose power, really. Because the tension that runs through them, it just sort of zaps. It zaps it. So much energy going into that tension. So we just relax, come around. And then it helps, I think, to have an elevated neck with these so that we can approach it a little bit from below. Sometimes when I'm sitting down, it's a little bit harder if the neck's down low because there's going to create more of a bend in the wrist. So that's something to think about as you're learning bar chords. If you like to sit down with your neck low, sometimes with that bent wrist, it's a little bit harder. But the positioning is going to be a little different. When my neck is elevated, I can come from it from below. My thumb sits not directly behind the index finger, but a little bit to the side. If you were to hold on to something between your index and thumb, you'll notice that it doesn't have a lot of strength when you put these together just like that. But as soon as you were to put something in between them where there's a little bit of space, there's suddenly this strength. And what happens with the index finger is rather than coming at the bar or at the object, but in this case the guitar neck, straight on, so having that bar sit straight on where this part of my finger is touching the fretboard, it's coming at it from an angle, so I'm getting it a little bit on the side and I get more of this kind of motion. It's stuck in between where my thumb is a little bit higher than the index finger and the index finger's turned to the side. It's also more comfortable because as we come through in these places where the joint is at, where we've got the knuckles over here on this side, These are tough spots sometimes to be pushing down those strings with. So if I come to the side, it's a little bit easier with where the bone is and how everything works. So my positioning here is turned to the side, just like that. So the thumb is up more behind where the second finger would be, and I can get some real strength there. Now, if I push with my thumb, if I push really hard, you're going to get tension running down through here, and it can start to hurt. I actually just have my thumb there, and then bring up the index finger. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to push down. My thumb is behind the 5th fret. So that's a good place for us, kind of in the center of the neck. So if you put your thumb behind that spot, and for now I've got my neck a little elevated, and I'll talk a little bit about how our elbow can come back when we have the guitar down further. But I'm able to come at it with a straight wrist, bring that thumb. I've got it behind the 5th fret, kind of in the middle of the neck on the back. And then the index finger comes down, and you want to bring it down and just see how little pressure you really have to put. The closer your index finger is to the actual fret bar, the easier it is to push and get a tone. So you want that finger to be there, push down, turn sideways. Because the finger is turned sideways, it actually can almost look like you're touching the bar, and you won't be. But you just find the minimal amount of pressure that you have to use to push down. Now, I'm playing one of my archtop guitars here. This one has a fairly nice action, meaning it's not so hard to push the strings down in general. So when I'm on an acoustic guitar, it's going to take more pressure, and when we're on some electric guitars, it's almost like actually cutting through butter. So depending on the guitar you're playing, it's a little different, but you just want to bring that finger down and try and relax in that position. Just relax, coming up straight, relax, and see how minimal that you need to have to push the strings down. When I started, I know I used to really grip it, and you don't need to. You need to try and relax, press down. Relax, press down. And this finger is just pressing down. I'm not pushing with my thumb. It's just the point that everything's being pushed against. And I'm just letting it come to me that way. And sometimes when you need to, you can put down that middle finger over the top. So it's just like that. And a great exercise is just to go to each fret and try and get them to ring, pushing it down with that thumb just being positioned a little bit higher, because again, that's where you get your leverage. I'm not pushing with my thumb so much as I'm bringing my finger back. I'm bringing it back to the thumb. My neck, I'm just bringing it back and finding that resistance as minimal as possible. And you just do it. And the more you do it, the easier you'll find staying relaxed, press down. It doesn't take as much force as it may seem to, though it does take some, and it takes time to get that strength. Of all the different things that I do on guitar, the thing that exhausts me the fastest is bar chords, especially if I'm on classical or one of my steel string acoustics playing something that takes more strength in it, and it can wear you out. But I used to, as a kid, when I was first learning these, just go through. The further up the neck we go, the more we're going to have thumb and index on top of each other. Depending on the guitar, most of the time, with the way guitars are, when they're set up nicely, the higher we go, the less strength it's going to take to push down the strings. If the action's super high, that's not the case. So you want to do that. And once you've done that, then you just add the other fingers. And it takes less force than we think. It's not a gripping motion. It's a set the thumb there and just bring those strings back to it with the minimal amount of pressure. So hopefully that helps. Now, just with these a little bit, if we were to look at this, right there in the 5th fret and put down that major chord shape, and then right there, going to that D, a great exercise is to just practice going back and forth between these, trying to get them to ring. And then, if you start to feel sore, take a break and stretch. Stretching really, really, really helps. So, just trying to take these shapes and get comfortable with them, somewhere like in the middle of the neck, going back and forth between the 6th string and the 5th string forms, can be really helpful. Do that, and then stretch. So I was just doing the major, then take the minor, and go back and forth with the minor. And then once Once you got the minor, go ahead and go back and forth between the dominant 7. Just start getting used to getting those down. It does take a little bit of muscle strength, so over time you're going to get stronger. I used to feel some with this muscle, sometimes even a little in the forearm. But if we are over tightening, so to speak, so if we are really holding tight, pushing down tight, if I can feel pressure like right there, then we're causing tension, and it's going to cause some pain. It's going to hurt. So you got to relax, play that shape nice and slow. Relax, play the next one. Relax, relax. Try and stay relaxed. Get those fingers, find that minimal amount of pressure, and play right through it. Now, I was demonstrating it with the fretboard tip tie, the neck tip tie, so you can come at it from underneath. When we are down low, then it changes it a little bit. We don't want, this is what we don't want when we're coming down low. We don't want our wrist overextended, as you get all this tension. If you walked around like this all day, it'd be kind of painful. So you want to come around, you want to pull your elbow back, and it becomes more like a 90-degree angle. And then it's just a little bit different where we're coming around. I need this part to bend. I don't want this. I don't want to be creating this as I'm playing bar chords. So I have to tuck that wrist back. My thumb ends up higher along the back of the neck, and we're sitting with them back here coming through. When I first started, I think that was a little bit harder to be comfortable with. It's much easier to learn to play them where you can come at it from underneath. So, but a lot of times the way we're sitting, when we're sitting and playing, once we've got it down up high though, it becomes more natural. Tuck that elbow back a little bit, have this part of the hand hitting where the bottom of the neck is, and bending back there instead of bending at the wrist. So we just bend back right here in that main joint. Okay, so I hope that helps with getting us started with some tips on bar chords, which really can open up the fretboard for playing in so many different styles. We just got to get the strength down there, kind of the little Mount Everest, kind of like learning the F chord in first position. So we gotta kind of bite through it a little bit. With so many of the in-person students that I have, we work on a bar chord song and then it's like, oh, and then we'd move to something else. So you got that. You can get comfortable with those shapes. Next Tuesday, then, we'll be talking about how we position those along the fretboard, which is really the second major trick to getting bar chords down. So where we can position them to play different songs for the different chords that we need. So it's going to be awesome. I will see you again. Of course, we have jazz lessons on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays right now. We got the Technique Tuesdays again. We'll have Theory Thursdays again on Thursdays, and on Saturdays, we've still got the strumming lessons that are coming out. So lots of great things right now. Hope you're having fun. Keep at it. Take care, and we'll see you again.
If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. For more in-depth lessons and to progress through a free guitar course, check out my Guitar 101 series on YouTube and my guitar method books, which all come with access to hours of in-depth video lessons. You can find more information about me and my products at KristenBromley.com. Take care.